the price gets destroyed. In the end, it's the suckers that came in late that lose them.
It's extremely ironic that Charlie spends hundreds of thousands on his card packs but thinks CryptoPunks are stupid. Hundreds of thousands? Are you insane? No, CryptoPunks are stupid. It's literal... I saw Mizkif get devastated by the revelation that maybe those grading services aren't all that honest. Ooh, it's 52 minutes. We'll at least watch some of it. Because it does look good. And I like Carl.
Hello, you absolute. 2021, the most expensive video game ever bought, cost $2 million. But this was a very special game. Oh, actually, it was the same game. That's an increase of over 6,000% for the same game in just 4 years. Something very strange is happening in the world of video game collecting. For the past several decades, video game collecting has honestly been pretty niche. Truly dedicated collectors seemed to be few and
like
far
angry video
between,
game nerd.
and even if they did amass a respectable collection, there was little fame to be gathered from it. Video game collecting was mostly
damn, wait, that looks nice.
Regular gamers,
holy
nerds
shit,
in the truest sense, who were just so passionate about the hobby that they were happy to spend whatever spare cash they could scramble together to acquire a cart here or there. Therefore, basically anyone could do it. And that was one of the great things about it. All you really needed was passion and time. But in
I wonder if any of the games I have are worth anything.
Something happened that would change everything. The launch of a company called Wata Games. This was no ordinary launch, and Wata is no ordinary company. There is a select group of very wealthy, very powerful people who are pulling the strings behind this recent spike in video game prices. And those same people are making money hand over fist.
Okay, so someone more knowledgeable than me. Is this a new grading company? I assumed that this grading company was like 40 years old. Like old as shit, grading games for a long time. But it seems like they're not that old. And it's the only one? So 2018 for that one, but there has to be an older one, right? I understand he talks about it, but I'm asking, isn't there like a really old one? Or are they all newer? Okay, so VGA is the old one. Thank you.
I heard the news of a $1.5 million Super Mario 64. This seemed too ridiculous for me to
because I'd never even seen these ratings until Mizkif. I knew there had to be more to the story than meets the eye, and boy, was I not wrong. This rabbit hole is deep. The bubble we are seeing in video games has been seen before in other collectibles for almost half a century. And the crazy thing is that each time it happens, the same people are involved. They know exactly what they are doing, and they know how to extract as much money as possible from suckers who believe the headlines. By the end of this video, you will know exactly why this is happening, who is causing it to happen, and what needs to be done to stop it. I really hope you enjoy. Thank you, that Camino. I've said for a long time I think grading is a fucking scam.
Now, before we get into the specific details about how this entire racket works, there are some concepts that I want you to be familiar with so that you can better understand the context. The first is the difference between the intrinsic and extrinsic properties of an object and how they relate to perceived value. Intrinsic properties lie within the object itself. For example, if we were to examine a painting, the intrinsic properties would be the materials it was made of, and also, of course, how the painting actually looked.
That's like the least
extrinsic
important thing of a
the
painting.
Relationship the artwork had with everything else. Who it was painted by, when it was painted, the context in which it was painted, and how sought after the piece is are all important qualities. When it comes to perceived value, it is the extrinsic qualities of a collectible that raises the cost significantly. Van Gogh paintings often sell for tens of millions of dollars. But if we were to program a robot to paint an identical piece, it wouldn't be worth much more than the cost of the paint and the canvas. Ultimately, both pieces would look the same on our wall. But us weird and wacky humans like to care about the details that don't directly impact us. We are even willing to spend millions of dollars more than we need to because of these details. Current video game bubble isn't an accident. You see, if you know how speculative bubbles work,
Beanie Babies!
You can theoretically create them at will.
I remember that bubble.
All you would have to do is raise the perceived price of a good quick enough so that speculators see the trend and start entering the market. Then, you can just sit back and let the positive feedback loop do the work. But there are actually smarter ways to make money, ways that
First gaming
incur
console
far
I did
less
was
risk.
Nintendo 64.
In the current video game market and the collectible market in general, there are two institutions that stand to gain the most from increasing prices. Those are grading companies and auction houses.
Grading companies are a scam.
Is a business that inspects games,
Big fucking
certifies
scam.
them, and gives them a rating of quality. They are basically quality assurance. They allow buyers to know exactly what they are getting, which enables quick and easy transactions. In a bubble, people are flocking to get their games graded in the hopes of profiting from the increasing prices. But it's not just the extra business that helps grading companies, as they also take a percentage of the market value when grading a game. A game worth $10,000 might cost around $400 to have graded, but if that exact same game was valued at $1 million, it would cost over $20,000 to have graded. It's a pretty good deal. But the institution that really profits the most by far is auction houses. Take Heritage Auctions for example, which is where all of the current record-breaking video game sales are taking place. They charge a 20% buyer's premium on every sale. So if you buy a video game for $1 million, you need to pay the auction house $200,000
Holy shit!
And just for shits and giggles, they also take 5% from the seller as well. You can begin to see why grading companies and auction houses would really want prices to go up. It's in their interest. This is also why grading companies and auction houses should never be speculating on the price of goods or impacting markets directly. They have a huge conflict of interest. And whenever you see a grading company or an auction house talking about how valuable
I don't grade shit. I don't buy graded shit on purpose or anything. I don't go to auction houses to buy graded shit.
All of this in mind. I'm going to provide you with a ton of information, and I'm going to trust you to connect the dots. If you are really interested in learning what's going on, I suggest writing down details as we go, or watching sections more than once. Let's begin. The two institutions that you will become very familiar with are Wata Games, the video game grading company, and Heritage Auctions, the auction house. Wata Games is the linchpin behind this entire bubble, and the certification that Wata provides is the
Does Wata stand for something, or is it just literally Wata?
Prices. Interestingly, Wata wasn't the first video game grading company to exist. In fact, the Video Game Authority, aka VGA, has been grading games since 2008. But the introduction of VGA didn't cause a bubble like the introduction of Wata Games did. And the reason is simple. VGA didn't manipulate the market or go out of their way to create
Still a scam, fuck
can't
grading.
Be said for Wata, however. Heritage Auctions are in the business of selling rare collectibles and memorabilia. They sell coins, comics, art, anything you can collect that has value. And in 2019, they started selling video games. But not just any video games, only games that had been graded through Wata Games. The interesting thing about the relationship between Wata and Heritage is that it seems to have existed before Wata even began grading games. On the initial website of Wata, when it launched, it had a dealer spotlight section where it listed key relationships. One was Heritage Auctions, where it stated that Wata certified video games will be featured in Heritage online auctions. This doesn't make sense. The entire point of certification is to guarantee authenticity and quality. Why would Heritage Auctions, a prestigious auction house, agree to sell games from a company that hadn't graded a single game? Why would they trust a business
because Dennis looks smart.
Any business to begin with, when there was already an existing grading company that had been grading games for 10 years? The only explanation to me is that Heritage Auctions was involved in some way in the creation of Wata Games and knew that it was on board with their mutual goals. And if you needed any further evidence of this pre-existing relationship, Jim Halperin, the founder of Heritage Auctions, was listed on the Wata website as an advisor. Another business that Wata had a relationship upon creation was Just Press Play, a distributor of used video games which was founded by Zach Geig. Now, in order to create a speculative bubble, you need a way to spread information very quickly. You need to draw in new eyes and make potential buyers aware that a market is building. The easiest way to achieve this by far is to create headline-worthy events that can disseminate through the media. In this case, it was the purchase of a Super Mario Bros. Cart for $100,000 in February of 2019. But the even more interesting thing is who bought this game. It was purchased by three men. The first was Jim Halperin, founder and chairman of Heritage Auctions. The second was Zach Geig, founder and owner of Just Press Play. The third was Richard Lecce, who has one of the largest video game collections on the planet. And if this wasn't obvious enough, Jim Halperin advertised in this press release that the game may end up in a future auction. While many video games sell regularly for 5 figures, breaking the 6-figure mark shows that the hobby's upward trajectory indicates no signs of slowing down. So what you have here is the chairman of the auction house buying a game for a record price and then creating a press release about his own purchase in which himself and the president of the grading company are stating that the value of games is going up. The press immediately jumped on this, and many articles about the purchase were written. Khan's tactic of pumping up the perceived value of games would be seen in every article.
It looks like he has a little shark fin.
In a Kotaku article, Khan states, "I've always said, video games are going to go the way of comics or cars or coins. It's only a matter of time until a video game sells for $1 million. Porn stars even had Dennis Khan come on, and again he pumped up the value, implying that it was worth at least 3 times.
Wait, what the fuck? Did they pay Pawn Stars for this? Because he owns the company that graded this. Wouldn't that be like a massive conflict of interest there? They had to, like, a paid History Channel, right? Like, there's no way.
Remember what I said about grading companies.
Obviously, Pawn Stars isn't real, but this is very different than what they usually do.
Dennis even faced backlash about this from intelligent collectors, who knew what he was up to. But of course, this didn't stop him. Khan would continue to abuse his authority as the head of Wata Games for the next few years, appearing in countless articles and interviews, and always pumping up the price. In fact, he's still doing it, even with the ridiculous price of $1.5 million that the recent Super Mario 64 went for in July. In a Verge article covering the record-breaking sale, Khan states, "I think that we are going to continue to see record-breaking sales. The equation.
Are Mizkif's boxes Wata?
Games, but
not
the
VGA?
People buying these games aren't who you'd expect. If you thought they were video game collectors hoping to complete their collection, you'd be wrong. Let's take a look at who is really buying up
Miz
these
has
games.
VGA, okay.
In particular, I was researching the appearance of a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out that Dennis Khan valued at $80,000. Through a Google search, I found something very interesting. It was a purchase agreement of the exact same cart. The owner of the cart, Brian, had sold it to a company for the exact same amount that Dennis had valued it at. The buyer was RSE Archive, LLC, which trades as Rally. Rally is a platform that allows investors to buy and sell equity shares in collectibles. To put it simply, people can buy a fraction of a video game, and if the price goes up, they can sell their slice to someone else in order to make a profit. And it's as silly as it sounds.
That's so dumb, yeah.
None of the people who buy equity in any of these collectibles actually own it. It's purely to try and make bets on the price and earn a quick buck. From Heritage, they bought a Pokemon Yellow for 78 grand, this Golf for 18,000, and many other private purchases.
Quick question then, quick question. Are people sending these games in to get graded by Wata? Or does Wata just have these on standby, like they have these in stock and they sell them through Heritage? It is fraud. Yeah, this is absolutely fraud. Okay, so people are sending them in. So they're sending them in, they get graded, and then those people take them to the auction where they get exploited and fisted, right? For 20% plus an additional 5% of the sale. Oh, that's gotta be rough to see then, Pluto.
Aside from these fractional share companies, we can also see people buying games from Heritage and trying to flip them on eBay. For example, a Super Mario that was bought for $84,000 in September of 2020 is now sitting on eBay with an asking price of $1.5 million. And one of the biggest cheerleaders for this fake narrative is Eric Nyerman. In 2019, a slew of articles sprung up about a video game collecting dentist who bought $1 million worth of video games. The original article was posted by the Washington Post, but if you know the real story, this article is insane. It describes Eric Nyerman as one of the world's most avid video game collectors, but in reality, he had only been collecting for several months. There are many people who have been collecting games their entire lives, but this man comes along and he's instantly the most avid collector in the entire world.
Well, he does look like it.
The article claims that he bought the games,
means business.
But this is also not true. He wasn't even using his own money. The money was put up by a group of investors, not by Eric Nyerman. So why is the Washington Post and many other news outlets touting Eric, who only entered the video game market in 2019, as the forefront of collecting? Why is it falsely stating that he bought the games when it was actually an investment hedge fund? Why are Wata Games and Heritage Auctions always there to give their opinion on the market? It's because
they own the government.
Not news. it's propaganda. Eric Nyman is part of the small group of people at the very top, building this bubble in an attempt to make money. He is a talking head with one purpose: to trick people into believing the video games he owns are worth millions, which he will then sell. And this isn't a secret. He admits his intentions freely.
Of course, that same week I discover on Heritage Auctions vintage video games, which I never even knew existed. And then when it played through in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is like so much better than cards for me. I mean, also it was a new and emerging market like you guys are having with NFTs. It's that excitement of like,
they're doing NFTs now?
This even catches up a quarter of to where cards have gone. You know, we could see 100x returns just at the beginning, you know, because it was so new. But as a collectible investment, this was like everything that I saw on a Mike Trout card, but like to the max on steroids. And for me, it was a time machine. It was literally like if you could like I always said to myself, I would look at like Nat Turner's collection of cards on Instagram at that time, and I was like, wow, if only I could go back 10 years and just like hang out with him and just buy everything he was buying. And, you know, it's that time machine that everyone has.
Has anyone ever made a living buying and selling video games, right? Like collector games? An individual, that is.
So we set up, we spent time, we set up an LLC, we made a business plan, and I went to like just neighbors,
so a couple people,
family, friends, all like successful, wealthy people. We spoke about all the risks and the benefits up front. They knew it was speculative, and I'm like, listen. But they all said the same thing. They're like, you seem super passionate about it. If I lose 15 grand on you, it's not the end of the world. Give it a run. To show even on Heritage Auctions, eBay auctions, look, what we spent appreciated 20 to 30%. This is working. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to help make the market. I'm going to let people know about this. I'm forming a market around something that I feel that is severely underappreciated.
My point is that it's not collectors that are buying any of these games. It's purely people with a lot of money.
Damn, he looks like a villain.
People out of theirs by
he was mean mugging
a bubble that otherwise shouldn't exist. Propaganda isn't their only weapon either. It gets much worse. We will now enter the wonderful world of shill bidding.
Oh shit. Baseball cards.
When it comes to auctions, there is only one thing that will consistently drive up the sale price of goods, and that one thing is competition. In 2008, a lawsuit was filed against Heritage Auctions for shill bidding. It was filed by Gary Hendershot, who was a former employee. The lawsuit alleged that Heritage used a shill bidder by the name of N.P. Gresham to drive up prices.
That's a cool name.
This lawsuit was ultimately settled out of court, so you may or may not want to put any real stock in it, but it is something to take notice of. Especially when Jim Halperin, one of the defendants, and if you remember, one of the investors who bought the record-breaking Super Mario, was caught lying in a sworn testimony. He originally claimed that N.P. Gresham didn't exist at all, but later had to admit they in fact did. While I was researching for this video, I spoke at length with Pat the NES Punk, who is one of the most dedicated collectors of NES games.
I've actually heard of this guy before.
He told me he was contacted by a comic book collector and seller whose father not only worked at Heritage Auctions, but was also friends with Jim Halperin. What he had to say was shocking, and Pat graciously connected us so we could talk. The collector, David Wilson, who founded and runs Collectors Comics, told me this.
Hi, my name is David. I'm from Comic Book Investments on YouTube. My dad, he had a personal relationship with Jim, and they had a personal relationship for years. And then through the relationship, that's how he got a job working at Heritage. He was a comic book grader. They're manipulating the market, and my dad gave me an example. Jim is one of the biggest comic collectors in the world. He has one of the biggest collections in the world.
Is he Jake Paul's fighting next?
And what Jim does...
Is it a child this time?
He would take a comic book, let's say he would take this book, right? He'd put it in his collection, and then like 3-4 years later, he'd throw it up on Heritage, and then he would manipulate the price by bidding it up. So say he bought the book for $3,000 forever ago. He throws it in a Heritage auction, and then he'd bid it up to, say, like $5,000, $6,000, buy it from himself, basically, he bids it up, and then he sticks it away back in his collection.
Has Heritage come out with a statement? This video is 3 days old.
Everything I currently know about Jim Halperin leads me to believe it probably is. The tactic definitely works. When items are sold at higher prices, it raises the perceived value of every similar item. It's even more effective if you purchase items at record prices. Naturally, this makes people want to sell their games through Heritage as opposed to anywhere else. But with all of the reports of shill bidding, reports of buying their own items, as again, the ridiculous price, the secrecy, and the obvious motive make it very suspicious.
Well, I think it can be said with a high level of certainty that this is a fucking scam.
Own platform to
it's like literal fraud.
It's time to take a closer look at Wata Games and how some of the key figures in that business are using their positions for their own gain. Shill bidding and buying your own items at inflated prices are pretty obvious ways to abuse your position at an auction house. But how could you take advantage of your own grading company? The first thing that comes to mind would be grading your own games. This presents a pretty clear conflict of interest, and even Wata admits this. In a New York Times article, Wata president Dennis Kahn goes on record to say that Wata employees are not allowed to have games graded by the company, or sell those that were. I'll say that again. Wata employees are not allowed to have games graded by the company, or sell those that were.
I imagine they still did.
Dane was also well known for his video game collection, and he had one of the largest assortments of sealed Nintendo games on the planet. But in 2019, he sold his entire collection to a gentleman by the name of Jeff Meyer, who is the founder and CEO of GoCollect. Jeff submitted the games to Wata, who graded them all, and as part of that grading, inserted the name of the collection they were a part of. And you can see this name on the label of the graded games. Jeff then immediately took the newly graded games and started flipping them through auction houses, most notably Heritage Auctions, where the first auction alone produced a total return of over $500,000. So why am I telling you this? Well, it's because Jeff Meyer is a director of Wata Games. You won't find this information publicly because they keep it a secret, but thankfully the company's SEC filings tell us everything we need to know. So what you have is the president of Wata Games saying that employees are not allowed to grade or sell graded games, but meanwhile, a director of the company is grading his entire collection. But not just grading it in a special, privileged way by naming it, therefore increasing the value. There is a very good argument to be made here for fraud, especially given that Jeff's relationship with Wata Games was never disclosed to the public. But it gets even worse. Jeff Meyer also purchased Nintendo Age, which, as I mentioned, was the most valuable database for retro video games. Jeff immediately shut it down. The cherry on top of all of this is that when Wata Games was incorporated in 2017, Dane Anderson was the executive officer. So this entire deal happened between two men that were or are directly involved with the company. Dennis Kahn obviously knows who the directors of his company are, so it really makes you think when he blogs about the Carolina collection on the Wata Games website, but fails to disclose that the purchaser of the collection is a director. And it forces you to think even harder when you realize that at the very same time he is telling the New York Times that employees cannot grade or
Surely one of these people have talked about this, right? Jeff Meyer. He has a YouTube channel, right? Surely he's talked about this. I really want to hear what they have to say, because this seems pretty ironclad. Someone said that Wata Games is going after Carl for this video. Carl is always getting targeted by the weirdest people, like fucking Billy Mitchell. And now Wata Games. Jeff Meyer's statement. Here, I'll put it on screen. Oh, actually, this is dangerous. This is Twitter. Might see the council of cock. Jeff Meyer's statement. No one at GoCollect, myself included, was consulted on any of this content. The allegations against me and GoCollect are untrue. I was never employed by Wata. I held a board position because I was a late-stage investor in the company, and I resigned from my board position in January 2020. I would welcome a live stream interview with Carl Jobst. And then Carl responds, my point here seems to be missed. I never called Jeff Meyer an employee. My point is that being a director is worse than being an employee because you have stake, control, and ownership of the company, which was never disclosed to the public. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like so irrefutable. Like, how do you even go against that? Because he was an active director of the company. Like, it's like, what do you even say? Like, no. Fuck you, your dick's small, you're wrong. Like, what do you do? Like, you can't do anything. He is literally a director who bought the collection from another well, I actually don't remember if the Dane was a director, but he was there when the company was fucking formed. So he bought the collection from another higher up at the company, had it graded by the company he's a director of, and then sold it to the auction house the company works with. Like, how? Like, there's just no way of defending that. And God knows those grades were inflated. I guarantee half that shit is not like a 9. What a wild rabbit hole.
Wata graded games. There is a good reason why grading your own games is a big conflict of interest, as the grade is extremely relevant when it comes to how much a game can be sold for.
Bit's chunky.
The higher the grade, the more valuable a game will be. How reliable are these ratings?
If you are going to spend $1.5 million for a high rating, you'd want to be pretty damn sure that the rating is accurate. Grading companies attempt to make their grading process as objective as possible, but the truth is that they are very subjective by nature. At the end of the day, the grading is given by a human based on their own perception of the game's quality, and history has shown that this perception can vary wildly from person to person. Grading companies have been known to give very different grades for the exact same item, and this has led to a practice called regrading. If someone receives a grade for an item that they believe is not high enough, they will simply take it out of the case and send it back.
You have a lot of people playing what I call the crack-out game, meaning they get a comic book back and it comes back CGC 9.6. They think it should be a 9.8. So they crack that baby open and they keep sending it back to CGC, hoping that at some point that grader is either going to slip up or that grader is going to get that book and go, hey, you know what? This is a 9.8. They're going to slap 9.8 on it and they're going to send it back to that submitter, and that submitter is going to be very happy. The average collector, average speculator, and the average investor
such a scam
is overvaluing a lot of these items based on the grade.
But you don't even need to regrade games in order to see the blatant inconsistency on display with what are graded games. Last month, a Tomb Raider for the Sega Saturn was sold for $12,000 through Heritage Auctions. It had a rating of 9.8 with an A+ for the seal, but it's immediately obvious that this grading makes no sense. The seal has multiple very large holes, which according to the grading system on Wata's own website is not allowed for A+ seals, which must contain no holes. The seal also has countless smaller holes, scratches, and stains. Quite frankly, it looks disgusting, and yet it gets an A+. I've seen seals with B grade that are better quality than this. My point is that video game grading is not a science, and the ratings given to games are not an exact representation of the game's quality, and yet the rating is touted as the sole justification for why people are spending an extra $1 million on some of these games. Now you understand why it is so important to establish Wata as the utmost authority on video games, because it makes their ratings all the more valuable. This is Mark Haspel, one of the founders of Wata Games and the current chief advisor. He has been involved in the comic book collecting scene for decades, but was never active in video game collecting. But right around the time that Wata was formed, he suddenly started showing up at video game conventions, buying as many sealed games as he could. Not only that, but he would actively seek out and inquire about sealed NES games. More specifically, the popular ones such as Mario, Metroid, Mega Man, Castlevania, and Zelda. The kind of games we see being sold now for record prices.
But what about Tomb Raider?
And remember, this was several years ago. His taste in video games seemed to align perfectly with the same games that would bring the most profit several years later.
Thoughts on CryptoPunks? Dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Mark Haspel was buying sealed 6-packs from a good friend of mine a year before Wata started grading games. Pat, the NES punk, also noticed Haspel collecting games at conventions.
In June 2019, I was a guest at a gaming convention. The weekend of the event, I noticed a small group of individuals who were hurriedly acquiring sealed and complete in-box games from vendors. At one point, I witnessed an individual who I later learned to be Mark Haspel returning to the Wata Expo booth while holding a stack of NES games. I did find it a little strange, but was unaware of any affiliation that person may have had with Wata, so I didn't think much of it at the time.
Before we get to the conclusion, I want to teach you about an event in history that might be relevant to what's happening right now. The great coin collecting bubble of the 80s.
Oh yeah, but the coin collecting shit was wild.
Believe it or not, this kind of crazy bubble surrounding a collectible has been seen before. Not to this extent, but still, this isn't a new thing. In the 80s, it wasn't video games, it was coins. PCGS is the world leader in coin grading, and on its website it tracks something called the PCGS 3000 Index. It's an index of the value of coins, similar to something like the Dow Jones. In the historical chart, you can see a massive spike occurring in the late 80s. After crashing, the price has still not recovered to levels seen 30 years ago, and this is without even considering inflation. So what caused this bubble? Well, according to an article posted on antiquesage.com, it was the development of slabbing and the introduction of third-party certification. Slabbing is where a grading company will take a coin, encase it in plastic, and give it a rating. Two grading companies were formed around this time, PCGS and NGC. The article goes on to state that the arrival of PCGS and NGC changed the industry nearly overnight. Now dealers, collectors, and investors could buy or sell slabbed coins sight unseen, because they all trusted the grades given by the major grading services. Kidder, Peabody & Co., Merrill Lynch, and UBS all created coin hedge funds where they took in money from investors to invest in coins. This expanded the bubble even further. But the thing about speculative bubbles is that they always burst. The price cannot go up forever, and at the slightest hint that the peak has been reached, everyone sells. The market becomes flooded, but because no one is buying, the price gets destroyed. In the end, it's the suckers that came in late that lose them.
It's extremely ironic that Charlie spends hundreds of thousands on his card packs but thinks CryptoPunks are stupid. Hundreds of thousands? Are you insane? No, CryptoPunks are stupid. It's literal fucking RNG generated pixels. Like, I think it's like, what is it, 8-bit? It's like an 8-bit smoking man, and it sells for 180 grand. CryptoPunks are super dumb. NFTs are super stupid. I mean, you can keep spending thousands of dollars on a picture of a tweet, but objectively, cards are cooler. And I'm not buying the cards to sell them. I'm buying them because they look cool. CryptoPunks don't look cool. Plus, I can have all of the CryptoPunks in the world right now on my desktop. I can just download them. I just don't have them on the blockchain. NFTs are a conceptually dumb fucking thing. The technology behind it's pretty impressive, but holding an NFT of Charlie bit my finger is useless. I have that video. Anyone can have that video. Just because you have the blockchain certified one doesn't make it any more special. It's fucking dumb. It is an objectively stupider thing. You cannot have my physical card because I have it. It's super, super different. Like, it can't even be compared.
Money. The bursting of the 80s coin bubble was a big deal, and hedge funds were inundated
and CryptoPunks are really fucking dumb.
Lost their investments.
It's
Merrill
just
Lynch
for rich YouTubers to peddle.
Over $20 million to their investors. The FTC even stepped in to investigate what happened, and this is where things get juicy. In the Antiques Age article I referenced, it said that PCGS and NGC were the first third-party coin grading companies. But what happens if the grading service misrepresents the grade of a coin, thereby increasing its value? That's
then
the
a miracle is happening.
By Bill McAllister of the Washington Post in regards to a recent decision by the Federal Trade Commission. The commission determined that overgrading coins was a deceptive and unfair act, prohibited by the 1914 law that created the FTC. Charged with this practice were two Texas-based corporations, Heritage Capital Corp. and Numismatic Certification Institute. Also named in the action were Steve Ivey and James Halperin, prominent numismatic figures. A consent order was signed agreeing to establish a $1.2 million fund for collectors who purchased the NCI-graded coins from Coin Galleries Incorporated of Miami. Heritage, Halperin. Those names sound familiar.
No, that's a coincidence.
And Jim Halperin. In the 80s, they were found guilty of illegally misleading customers about the value of coins and fined $1.2 million. From the 1989 FTC annual report, it states, Numismatic Certification Institute and its principals Steve Ivey and James Halperin agreed to settle charges that its representations and failures to disclose information misled customers to the value of coins certified by the company. Another interesting thing about Jim is that in 1985 he wrote a book called How to Grade US
What a great
coins,
book it was, up there with the Bible.
The grading standards of the two leading third-party grading services, PCGS and NGC, were ultimately based. Again, these are the two grading companies that Antiques Age cited as the most important factors in the coin bubble. There is a very strong case to be made that Jim Halperin is the single most responsible person for the coin bubble of the 80s. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it kind of looks like he's doing exactly the same thing again 40 years later, but this time in video games. Remember, Jim Halperin bought the Super Mario Bros. Cart that sparked this entire game bubble. He is an advisor to Wata Games and, according to rumors, also an investor in the company. It's too convenient that this one person is involved in every single piece of the puzzle when he has
It's just a coincidence. He loves games, bro. He's a gamer.
This doesn't seem like a coincidence
and he can value them.
The retro video game bubble cannot go on forever. At some point, it will burst. The question is when. There are a couple of scenarios that might make this happen sooner rather than later. The first is the release of population reports.
In collecting, one of the things that drives up the price of
an item no pop reports for Wata?
In every other realm of collecting, grading companies produce what are called population reports. These reports tell you exactly how many of any particular item have been graded by the company, along with their rating. So if I do a search for Action Comics #1 through CGC, a comic book grader, I can find out exactly how many are out there and at what rating. Population reports are standard practice because they allow people to judge the rarity of an item
Nintendo's in on this fraud too?
fairly before making
Nintendo doesn't know what the internet is.
But
I'm not worried about
surprise, Wata Games keeps this information hidden from the public and refuses to let anyone know how many games of each type have been graded. So we really have no idea how many of each game are out there. It has already started happening with some games. The best example is Spider-Man for the Atari 2600.
Who would buy this?
In May of 2020, the first sealed Spider-Man was listed on Heritage Auctions. It was a 9.8 A++, the best rating you can get. It was mint condition, and it's such an old game that it's surely rare. It sold for $9,000, which in 2020 was actually still a decent amount of money to spend on a video game. But the funny thing about Spider-Man for the Atari 2600 is that it's not rare. It's not rare at all, even in mint condition. After this sale, Heritage was flooded with 9.8 A++ Spider-Mans. And when I say flooded, I really do mean flooded. With each sale, the price diminished. When people realize how common some of these games are, prices will be destroyed. And that's what Wata Games and Heritage Auctions are afraid of. Legitimate collectors have been complaining for the past 2 years, but unfortunately, none of them have substantial audiences, and they are essentially powerless against the forces that are driving this bubble. If you want to help make a positive change, you can send Wata Games some feedback by email, letting them know how appreciated it would be if they let us know how many graded games are out there.
It is called Majora's Mask? I thought it was the Fierce Deity Mask. Oh, no, it's not. It's a totally different mask.
Journalists don't even bother asking real collectors what they think about what's happening. They simply get sound bites from Wata and Heritage and allow them to inflate the bubble with hype. I asked a couple of lifetime collectors what they think should happen, and this is what they had to say.
This is the end result. The unfortunate end result is that this hobby that we all love has been perverted
into something beautiful,
to the
big dollars
of a small group of people to line their pockets. These are rich people getting richer, and they've stepped on and stepped over all the video game collectors, all the people that have sold the games, run video game shops, all the people on forums researching this illustrious and beautiful past history of video games. They've all been used. We've all been used now for the select
and it feels good.
To get richer. And it's a crying shame.
Oh.
It's probably too late, unfortunately. But in a perfect world, there should be full transparency and accountability when it comes to these video games.
This would not be a problem going forward, guys. This is a problem due to the fact that there is a lack of ethics and a lack of transparency in these markets. Collectors deserve.
Well, there's also a bigger problem of fraud.
This bubble isn't just affecting sealed video games at the highest price points. The selling point of every single game has increased dramatically over the past 2 years, even for non-sealed games. Aspiring video game collectors who legitimately want to build their collections will get screwed because the hobby will become too expensive to be viable. What's worse is that people are using the record sale prices in order to scam people. You can find cart-only Super Mario 64s for hundreds or even thousands of dollars on eBay when they are only worth $10. People with a lot of money and power have taken over collecting, and their thirst for money means we will all suffer. As someone who does care deeply about gaming, it honestly sickens me that these people have turned these cherished possessions into a means to gamble and speculate. And I hope this ridiculous practice of trying to extract profit from the suckers who buy the hype will end sooner rather than later. As a sign of appreciation, it would be amazing if you could go and subscribe to a couple of real collectors that helped me learn more about this. Go check out Pat the NES Punk and also Sean from Reserved Investments. These two gentlemen have been collecting for most of their lives, and we need more people like this who are not only passionate
but he has Wata graded shit.
What's happening. Also check out David Wilson's channel, as it really took some balls to be willing to let me know what he had heard. You can find the links to these channels in the description. Hopefully, you have learned something about how those in power can create speculative bubbles. Next time you see them trying to do it, make sure you call it out and let them know that we won't tolerate it. As always, thank you so much for watching.
That was very interesting. That was a lot deeper than I thought it would be.
Day, and I will see you in the next video.
That's fucking wild. It really seems like irrefutable proof that Carl had here. I don't know how Jim especially has any leg to stand on with all of this being so publicly visible. Like, there's no opinion pieces in this entire video. It is actual just facts and proof to back it up. To be honest, I disagree with the video. Disagree with what? He proved the connection with Heritage and WATA and the very fraudulent activity. It's not really something you can disagree with. It's more like I just don't care, which is fine. You can't disagree with can of cat food with nothing to drink, gagging, eating canned cat food, mukbang, and shotgunning a what is that, Miller Lite?
Before we get into that,
yeah, let's run it.
We gotta shotgun one and get ready for everything.
Well, yeah. If you're gonna eat cat food, you gotta shotgun a Miller Lite. Miller Lite tastes like liquid cat food anyway. You gotta get yourself ready.
Show your hands, is it? That's what I'm talking about.
Awfully slow shotgun. Not impressed with that, I gotta be honest. Maybe the cat food chug will be better.
Nice. Out of time.
You're losing precious flavor. The juices. It's the best part. What are you doing? You're not even paying attention.
It smells disgusting.
But it tastes good. Was that the first time he's ever shotgunned a beer? He is struggling.
I'll be fine.
Oh yeah, you're fine. This is part of the experience. Okay, he definitely puked off camera.
To God, chug. And send it. Oh, nasty.
Exit Prime, Tappy, and Bud.
It's gonna be so fucking nasty.
Come on, let's go. Here comes the airplane.
Got it.
There it is. That's what I'm talking. Now let's get a review. 1 to 10. I'll wait till you finish the can, I guess.
First bite's always the worst.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Oh, no.
Oh,
got it.
That's a good chunk. Oh, if you're not going to savor the flavor, what's the point? You're basically just chugging Mountain Dew with a little cat food. I'm not impressed. Eating a can of dip, chewing tobacco, mukbang. Paying angry grandpa to chug expired milk. You paid him $1 to chug expired... What? What the fuck?
Go ahead and drink it.
I will. I'll get it cold. I bet you $1 I'll drink it.
Nah, drink it now.
Doing nothing.
I'll give you $3 if you drink it now. I'll give you $5 if you drink it now.
Good negotiation.
$5.
Yeah.
Give me damn $5.
If you drink it now.
I'll drink it now. Give me $5.
You have to drink it first.
I don't care about
this is not Florida. This is absolutely Missouri. This is Missouri 100%.
Give me $5.
Nah, you have to drink it before I give you.
Why is he getting the knife out? Is he going to stab him for the $5?
Before I give you.
Drink it. He will.
Right now.
No, he won't.
Yes, yeah, he will.
Jesus, is this a holdup? Fuck.
Chug it.
Oh, that's milk?
Got it, chug it, cinch it.
What the hell are you doing?
Wait, what the fuck is that? I've never seen milk come like that.
Expired November 2020.
You might as well get your shirt dirtier.
Well, he's... $5 is $5, I'll tell you what.
Just walk through the desert.
Well, what do you do for 10?
Oh no! Expired November 2020.
I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
70-something degrees out here. 78 degrees out
here.
They're
not going with it because it's expired. That takes them all time. They expired.
Yeah, you choke.
Eating lit cigarettes Mr. Beast style. Is Jimmy known for eating lit cigarettes? This one's really quiet. Whoa! It would have been better not to do this during a tornado. None of that, literally not a drop of that beer went into his mouth, I don't think. Like, look, it's completely, it is just getting taken away by the extreme winds. I actually don't think any of it made it.
Hello everyone, Mossman8562 coming at you again. The votes are in, everybody.
The cameraman is soaked. True.
Now you just got it.
Oh, yeah. Tasty.
Okay.
It's looking good. Ah, yes, nice jar of urine, of course. That should help. I will say that is probably the speedrun world record for eating lit cigarettes. I'm not going to dispute that. So what made that Mr. Beast style? Can Mr. Beast do this without throwing up? I just don't think he can, to be honest. Not to count out Jimmy, but I think Muscle Man's got him beat on eating lit cigarettes. It's going to be tough for him at the very least. Can you look up how an ex-cop rigged McDonald's Monopoly game and stole millions? How long is it?
This ex-cop rigged McDonald's Monopoly game and won for 12 years.
That's a good run.
Oh, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload from us. Also, leave a like right now.
What a horrible intro. My God.
To associate
Holy
McDonald's
shit.
long-running Monopoly game with conspiracy and fraud, but on September 10th, 2001, a trial would begin that would see over 50 people convicted of mail fraud and conspiracy.
Oh, wow.
The scheme was orchestrated and carried out by ex-cop and the mastermind, Jerry Jacobson, who would end up defrauding McDonald's out of over $24 million.
Wow.
People believe this story of desperation, betrayal, and wild antics. Although the McDonald's Monopoly game is a huge nationwide event today, it had a very small start.
I've never heard of it. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
The first year alone, the game generated over $40 million in prizes, and since then, the game has only grown thanks to a spot-on advertising campaign. With the hopes of winning some of the amazing cash prizes, millions of customers flocked to the restaurant to fill up their board pieces. However, there was one big problem. Unfortunately, no one was going to win, even those supersizing their orders to maximize their
Supersize, I remember that.
Why? Well, it seemed McDonald's system to keep things fair was actually rigged. While the odds were always steep, in reality, they were much worse. The true odds were 25,000 to 0, and the winning piece was in the control of one man who cooked up a system, although a sloppy one, to decide where the winning pieces were distributed. All Jerry Jacobson ever wanted to be was a police officer, and he eventually achieved that dream. Unfortunately, due to a neurological disorder, he had to leave the force, and he moved from Florida to Georgia with his wife. At first, he floated from job to job in order to make it financially, before he landed a position at the Dittler Brothers, a printing company where his wife worked as the secretary auditor. There was only one man who had access, and that was Jacobson.
This isn't as cool as I thought it would be.
And was one of the few people with access to the safe that kept the ones with the larger prizes. And why did Jacobson turn to crime? Well, he revealed in court documents he felt like he needed to prove to his brother that he could actually pull it off. Of course,
I mean, it's not exactly like the most big brain scheme.
He began to sell winning
I work here. I'll take this.
During his time at Simon Marketing, Jacobson began to live a life of luxury. He flew everywhere first class, wore expensive brand name clothing, and dined at places like Ruth Chris Steakhouse, where he could charge all of his food to his expense account. Friends to work with. One was Gennaro Colombo.
It's way worse. Okay, a lot of people are saying the story is a lot more interesting than this video is making it out to be. Because right now, to me, it just seems really underwhelming. Old dude works at the firm that's getting the pieces that are winners. And it's his responsibility to make sure that those pieces go in the meals and random people win it. But instead, he just says, I'll take it. Like, it seems super basic. So it doesn't sound like a really cool story. If I remember correctly, it involved the mafia at some point. I'll have to watch the actual documentary on it. Someone said it's called McMillion. I might watch that.